So hello, my name is Lord Watson. I am the founder CEO of the Penny Foundation, and my role today is to moderate this panel on strengthening connections, a discussion on interfaith giving. And so I am excited to have all of you all a part of this this particular portion of the We Give Summit. And so I just want to acknowledge the work that's gone into putting on this month-long summit. As we were talking about a little earlier, all of the sponsors and the organizers, thank you for this space and this opportunity. I'm excited about this panel. I'm supposed to open it up and to provide housekeeping. So if you have to use the restroom, I can help you there. If you want water, I can't help you there either. Now that the house cleaning is done, we can get on with the rest of the we can get on with the rest of the program. And so I'm excited to have, again, a panelist to talk about this topic. This is not our first time presenting as a group together. We've also presented one time in the past and talking about this role, this intersection between philanthropy and faith and importance that faith plays in philanthropy. And just the two things that I remember from that session, and then I have the panelists to introduce themselves. The two things I remember is why our faith dictates that we give or indicates that we give. And please correct me if I'm wrong. If I remember from the Islamic faith, it's more of an angle from justice and making sure that this role of giving that it's a repayment for the gifts and the opportunity that's been afforded. Right. And in Jewish faith, it was charity. It's supporting people and making sure that people have what they need and supporting them in that way. And then in the Christian faith, it was more of acknowledgement that we're only vessels, that what we receive, it comes from God and it goes and it's supposed to flow through us. And so it's the why we gave. And then the other piece is that we ended up landing on basically the root word of philanthropy, which is philo, love. Anthropos, of mankind, and so that's kind of how we left it. I don't see this necessarily as part of a part two of that, but it's another discussion amongst friends who had a discussion about faith and philanthropy before. So with that, I'm gonna have the panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start with Liz, and make sure when you introduce yourself, please provide a interesting fact or funny fact about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Fisher. I'm the Executive Director of Amplifier, which is a project of the Jewish Federations of North America. I'm going to share two pieces to start. One is my fun fact, which is that my oldest child is 18 today. So I've successfully gotten a person to adulthood. And those of you who have raised children know that you don't know every day that that's going to work, but I'm so proud of him. Thanks, Muhi. And the other thing I just want to say is that in the Jewish tradition, there's really a almost an obligation to not teach in the presence of someone who's potentially a better teacher than you. And if you have to make sure to acknowledge them. And my former colleague and much more tremendous Jewish scholar, Molly Andron, is on this call. And so I just want to acknowledge Molly, because really, like, a lot of what I'm going to say today is things that I've learned from Molly over the years. So thank you for being here, Molly. And I'll pass it on to whoever you think is next, Lord.
All right. Go, Thomas.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcus. That's okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcus Thomas. I serve as Program Director at Mount Zion Greensboro. I lead all outreach initiatives and volunteerism for the church. I guess my fun fact is, since Liz, I know you talked about your son celebrating his 18th birthday today, I'll be celebrating my 35th birthday on Sunday. So that is my fun fact.
That sounds like fun. Well, happy early birthday. Muhi?
Thank you so much, Lord, and great to be with Liz and Marcus again. Since we're talking about birthdays, I just turned 36, so I only have a dog and a cat and 2 chickens to say that I'm a responsible adult, but one day maybe we'll get there. Fun fact about me is that I have all those pets, but that I played rugby in college. And it's in college that I found out about development and philanthropy as a career. So kind of got launched into all of this at the University of Michigan and haven't looked back ever since 2009. And just really grateful to be part of this panel, part of this discussion, part of this movement with each and every one of you, and looking forward to hopping into the discussion.
Great. Thank you all for your introduction. You can find out more information on each one of these speakers, and you can read their bios at wekillsummit.org/speakers. I guess my fun fact would be my name is Lyord. My name is Lyord, and I'm a preacher. And I have a son that's Lyord the Third. And so my sister jokingly calls my father, myself, and my son Lyord the Father, Lyord the Son, and Lyord the Holy Spirit. She calls us our little Trinity. So that's my fun fact. All right. So first question, all right, as we jump into this conversation, is how can giving circles be meaningful for faith-based institutions? How can giving circles be meaningful for faith-based institutions? Marcus, I think you lead us out.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So for us at Mount Zion, our giving circle, we start our giving circle with our young adult ministry and really being intentional about teaching our young adults about philanthropy. Because I think one of the negative connotations of philanthropy is that, you have to be older white person to be considered a philanthropist. And so with giving circles, we really want to teach them about pooling their dollars together and making a collective impact within our own community. And so it's been very meaningful for our organizations because, we've been able to really reach a younger age sector of our community and of our church, and to really get them involved in the community from a philanthropy standpoint, and making sure that they are making a collective impact, with everything that we've been experiencing the last couple of years around social justice and all the inequities that we've been experiencing in our country. Our giving circle has definitely stepped up and been able to make an impact in those different areas. And so it's definitely put our church in a different light. It's allowed us to just step out there and do new things and different things. And it's been very beneficial to our organization as a whole.
Great. Liz, same question to you. How can giving circles be impactful for faith-based institutions?
Thanks. I'd say two things. The first is that in the Jewish tradition, we are really obligated to give, and I think faith-based institutions can help us fulfill that obligation through giving. But the thing that's really on my mind right now is how giving circles can help faith-based institutions with engagement. There's new research in the Jewish community that just came out by Pew, so national research about the Jewish community in America, really talking about how Jews, and particularly younger Jews, think about themselves, their religion, their community. And the growing number of young Jews are sort of Jews of no religion, like Jews who feel connected to religion or to Judaism, but not necessarily through religion. And my understanding of the greater American context is it's actually true for young people in general. Like the fastest growing group of religious people in America are nuns. And I think Giving Circle, not nuns, N-U-N, by the way, in a religious context, but nun, N-O-N-E, like people who aren't religious. And,
thank you for that clarification.
And we've seen that giving circles can be an amazing way for faith institutions to engage people around their values and around their community that might be different than being in the sanctuary and sort of in a typical kind of prayer space. And I think giving circles are an amazing model to connect people, help them build community, help them talk about their values, help them build relationships with faith-based institutions in new ways that feel sort of relevant and less like maybe their parents' or grandparents' religion.
Yeah. I think it's similar to what Marcus was the example that he gave, engaging young people in his churches as well. That's important. Muhi, same question for you.
Yeah, thank you. Building off of what Marcus and Liz have said, there's a few, there's not a lot of data on Muslim philanthropy in general, but, Indiana University has a center or a Muslim philanthropy initiative. They also the Lake Institute on Faith and Giving has sponsored with American Muslim Community Foundation a study on American Muslim philanthropy. And it was hosted by the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding. So I'll drop that link in the chat for people to have access to that and provide more understanding of faith-based giving from the Islamic perspective. But we all know, like, the data from Giving USA, last year there was nearly $450 billion given to charities. And of that, roughly 30%, $128 billion went to religious institutions. So when you ask the question of, you know, how giving circles can be meaningful to faith-based institutions, it's looking at how these faith-based institutions can harness that $128 billion. You know, what are they doing to engage their congregations? You know, in this last year, there's been so many challenges with engaging congregations because many went virtual. So, you know, seeing, you know, in the mosque, you know, on Friday prayer, when people would go, you know, maybe they just dropped cash into the charity box every week and never really shared their personal data with the mosque. And then they lost out on retaining that donor over the last year. But if there are giving circles that are more strategic about engaging congregations, or even if it's not part of a mosque or synagogue or church or, you know, wherever you worship, you can still be giving based on your faith identifier with other people. And I think one of the great opportunities that giving circles provide are a means for those individuals to come together and be proactive about their charitable giving. They're making decisions together how they want to support the institutions they care about. And, you know, they may not give based on their, they may not be giving to a faith-based institution, but they're giving because of their faith. So there are many different levels to this and how the giving circles can be of benefit. So happy to explore more of that with everyone as well.
Yeah. Yes, I definitely agree. The thing that strikes me when I thought about this question is that I think faith-based institutions shouldn't view giving circles as a threat, but as a tool. I think that as long as we can get over that hurdle, I think it's really it can be really impactful. Because the other thing I also believe is that, you know, this giving circle, although we have a name for it, but the actual concept itself is not new, right? I think that is modeled best and practiced best in church, in faith-based institutions. And I know I can see that. I can remember in my own, recollection and growing up in the Baptist church, you had this group of women that were called the missionaries. So you had the church that had its own general offering, but the missionaries also had a pool of funds that they poured money into. And when a young woman needed help or what have you and came to the church, they took care of that out of that pot of money. So giving circles have always been a part of faith. It's just been called different things in different ways. And so my next question is a little bit broader question dealing with the field of philanthropy. But why does the voice of faith, why is it important? Why is it needed in the field of philanthropy? And Muhi, we'll start with you.
So I think when it comes to why faith-based voices are critical in this journey, it's, you know, for me, I've often felt my identity as a Muslim, I've had to kind of represent what Islam is in America to some extent. I've had to showcase that we're not how the media portrays us. And if you ask a lot of Muslims, it's not necessarily their responsibility to do that. It's those who feel that way to educate themselves about what Islam is and who Muslims are, right? And I think one of the benefits from, one of the silver linings, if you want to call it, from all of the social unrest through the Black Lives Matter movement is that now you have the opportunity to have discussions around social justice and being able to have more thoughtful discussions and open communication around Islamophobia or anti-Semitism or Asian American hate and LGBTQ issues and so many other things that are now coming to the surface because the community has this basic level of understanding and like the blinders have been lifted, so to say. But part of what I want to talk about is how through charitable giving, American Muslim Community Foundation has been able to be part of the narrative of who American Muslims are, that we are giving to local institutions and food banks and hospitals and universities well beyond the Muslim community. And part of that ISPU study that I shared says exactly that Muslims are just as likely to support causes outside of our faith community than we are within our faith community. So, you know, I as an individual, Muhi Khwaja, when I give to support the University of Michigan, they don't understand that I'm doing that because of my faith identity. You know, I'm called by my religion to give of what I love. And I love the security that money provides me, right? And I'm giving of that. And when I give my zakat or my sadaqah, which is the religious tithing, very similar to the Jewish faith of sadaqah, when I do that, I'm redistributing the wealth that God has given me, right? It's not my money. God has entrusted me with this. And when I redistribute that to others, that is my way of appreciating God and thanking God for what he has given me. So when it comes to talking about faith-based philanthropy, there's all of these hidden layers there. And just having more honest conversations around that and hoping that through American Muslim Community Foundation and all of the charitable giving that we do, we can now say that since 2017, we've given out $4.25 million to charities all across the country. And what's more powerful or impactful than showcasing this in a positive light to be of benefit to the entire American Muslim community and also impacting the general community for basic needs across the country, for access to healthcare, for access to education, and so many pivotal things. So when we talk about charitable giving, I like to frame it from the mindset of here are a group of American Muslims who are contributing back to society, and we're doing it through our charitable giving.
Okay. Marcus, same question to you. Why are faith-based voices needed in the field of philanthropy?
I believe faith-based voices are needed because I believe that it provides a sense of balance with all things philanthropy and all things giving. Because, you know, no matter what my religious beliefs are, or, you know, compared to Muhi's or Liz's, at the end of the day, it's all rooted in love. And it's all rooted in looking out for the well-being of others. And even as a religious organization, you know, we preach, we teach the importance of tithing, which is, you know, on the Christian faith, you know, giving the first 10% of any increase. And even as a church, you know, our church, we tithe back out to the community. So 10% of what we bring in annual in revenue, we give it back out to the community. And over the last 5 years, we've given out over $5 million back to charitable organizations or even individuals who may need help, whether it's rental assistance, paying utility bills, or, you know, may need a car, or whatever the case may be. And so I think that for religious organizations, I know we do a lot of talk at times about, you know, we need to do this, we need to do that. but I think it's a different impact when people put their money where their mouth is. And I think that it garners a lot more respect from the community as well. And so we're looking at religious organizations, really practicing philanthropy. I think that's really important. And one of the things that I try to, help people, understand is that, yeah, we give because that's what we believe, that's our religious practice, and our belief. But at the end of the day, when I give my 10% back to my church, I'm a donor. And I view myself in that sense. I understand that I'm giving my 10% back to God, but at the end of the day, I'm giving back to a religious organization. At the end of the year, my church sends me, the document that I can take to my accountant to show what I can,
Right.
what I've given throughout the year. And I think it's important for individuals to see themselves as donors. Who give to that particular church or whatever religious belief that they have, that they view themselves as that, because I think it makes them feel more empowered, and then they're able to really help out the next generation that's coming behind them to understand what philanthropy really is.
Wow, that's good. Liz?
I agree so much with Muhi and Marcus, what you both just said, and I learned so much from both of you every time we're together. I want to like this to be part of my religious practice, just to get to talk to the two of you on a regular basis, and you too, Lord. I'm going to add something different because I don't want to repeat what both of you said, which I agree with completely, which is, I think the other thing that the other reason why faith can play a role in philanthropy is really going back, Muhi, to what you said about being proactive in giving. And a lot of giving by individuals is reactive. And I get it. I do it too. Every day, I get things in my social media feed, or I see something in the news and I reactively give. But I also think we all have an opportunity to be really proactive in our giving. And to me, a primary way to do that is through grounding in values. And I think faith, for those of us who come from faith traditions, faith is one way to really ground ourselves in the values and think about, okay, like, here's what I care about. And I often recommend that people do a little exercise where they kind of write down all the things they care about. And then they look at, they either keep a list of everything they give to, including, when they hand out money on the street to people, like everything. And then at the end of the year, try to see, do those things match? Do they match in the ways that they want to? And I think faith values and faith traditions are one way for us to think about that. There's this story that I love in the Talmud, which is a Jewish religious text, that talks about a poor person going to a rabbi and asking for food. And the rabbi says, well, what are you used to eating? And the person says, well, I'm used to eating fatty meats, like expensive, delicious things. And the rabbi says, well, would you instead sit and eat lentils with me? It's a funny story in a 2021 context when maybe the lentils might feel a little fancier to us, but it says, will you eat kind of poor people food with me? And the guy says, sure. And they sit and they eat, and then the person dies. And there's a really interesting discussion following that about whose fault is it, and what's our responsibility to actually sort of meet people where they're at and give them in accordance for the lifestyle they're used to living. And there isn't a clear answer, because in Judaism, there usually isn't a clear answer, but these are the kinds of stories that are hundreds of thousands of years old in faith traditions that also provide context for us to think about how we think about giving today.
Yeah, I think that's a part of life and faith in general, is the unclarity and walking through the through the unknown in some degree, right? So I see questions that are coming up in the chat, but there's one more question I want to make sure that I ask. And I think it's important to ask the question, in particular when we talk about interfaith and working together. Muhi, I would like for you to kind of talk a little bit about the interfaith giving circle that you've been working on. But my question is going to be around barriers, right? So that's, giving circles are in a way, it's democratic experience, right? Everybody comes together, make a decision. You put something in the pot, you make a decision where the money goes, and things of that nature. How do we barriers that we see, and then how do we begin to work through those barriers so that interfaith, not just giving through our faith, but giving in concert with others, becomes more prevalent?
Yeah, I've been giving a lot of thought to this, and it really started out as an idea that started in these conversations. I was blessed to be introduced to Liz and Molly and the Amplifier team a few years ago, and that really inspired me to think of, they have all of these fantastic resources from Jewish philanthropy perspective, like what can I do to amplify Muslim philanthropic resources? And since then, we've been really great thought partners, and they've really helped me personally on this journey through American Muslim Community Foundation, and even just through Philanthropy Together, being connected to people like yourself and Marcus and so many others in the Community Investment Network. It's been really, really great just to have this resource. And I've learned about other interfaith giving circles that operate across the country, but many of them were like region specific. So they're, maybe in Utah or like other places across the country. But the idea that we have was to create an interfaith giving circle that was virtual, that was national, that pulled in people from all across the country who were activists in their communities, sitting on religious councils across the country, in their neighborhoods and states, and bring them together. And right now we're still in the planning phases, but we hope that by the end of August, September timeframe, we will launch publicly. And if you're interested in being part of the planning of this Interfaith Giving Circle, we're planning our June meeting very soon. So feel free to reach out if you want to be involved with that. And in terms of like the why, right? I think there's no more of a critical time than now, right? We see what's happening in Palestine and Israel. We see what's happening all across the country here in the US. And we need to be having honest conversations, but beyond the kumbaya, beyond the good feelings, like let's put our money where our heart is. Let's fund institutions that are making change, that are combating hate, that are working towards building a better tomorrow. And I'm hoping that through this giving circle, we can identify causes across the country that will allow us to put our resources together and support common causes that are helping demystify our religions, that are supporting the education and promotion of what we do in our local communities. That, we are managing food banks and managing healthcare clinics that are religiously based, but helping the general population, right? There's so many great stories that we need to unearth to tell this story. And I'm hoping that through a giving circle like this, we'll be able to learn from one another, build with one another, and continue to support great work. Because a lot of times, if you go to a community foundation or a family foundation, they're not going to support a religious-based institution. And there's a lack of funding from foundations for religious-based entities. So we want to uplift that and get more funding to these fantastic organizations that are doing incredible work.
Great. Marcus, so I'm gonna change the question a little bit. So part of the question is barriers. What are barriers that you see as far as working together? And then if you have any thoughts around how do we work together, right? Tips for working together. Feel free to share those as well.
Yeah, so I believe that one of the things that we could do to work together is putting aside our own personal agendas. For me, I'll speak. For me, yes, unapologetically I'm a Christian. However, if I see a Muslim organization or a Jewish organization that's doing great work in the community, that's making a positive impact in the lives of those in the community, I'm going to, and they need financial support. I'll make that financial support. It doesn't make me less of a Christian by supporting another organization that we may differ in beliefs. I'm not that high and mighty that I can't do that. And I think that's one of the barriers that people have, is because sometimes we get so stuck in religion that we don't see that realistically, if we look at this history as a whole, it's religion that's caused a lot of issues that we have in our world today. Um, and so just putting those agendas and putting those things to the side. And I think some of the tips that we can do to better work together, it's just to have an open and honest dialogue, honest conversation, and really just coming together and and figuring out, okay, what's going to be the best need for the community that we're all serving. And I think if we come together and look for what's going to be best for the community that we're serving, we can get a whole lot more completed and make a larger impact on the communities that we all live, work, play, eat, and live in. And I think that's important. And I'll also say 2019, prior to the pandemic, I had the opportunity to work with the Greensboro Jewish Federation, and we had a interfaith journey, and we did a civil rights journey where we went down to Atlanta, Birmingham, Alabama, and Montgomery. And I had the wonderful opportunity just to work with the Jewish community and really get a chance to get to know them and learn from them. They was get a chance to know me and learn from them, from me co-chairing that trip. And that's just a prime example of me putting my own personal religious beliefs to the side and willing to come to the table and work with the Jewish community. And I've been able to make a lot of great contacts, a lot of great friends, people that I consider friends today, based off helping put together that trip. And I just think that we need to do more of that, not just political beliefs, but also religious beliefs, and just put all those things to the side and just come together as people to make a difference.
Okay, and Liz?
Yeah, it's been a hard couple of weeks to be, I can speak from personal experience Jewish in the United States, and I can speak from the experience of what I've heard from my Muslim friends and colleagues Muslim in the United States. And I think in particular, the Jewish community has experienced, Jewish individuals have experienced a lot of violence over the last couple of weeks. Today is actually a day of action against anti-Semitism that my organization and many are sponsoring. And I think a barrier for sure is, I think, the not being in relationship, right? So I don't want to say social media, but a big barrier that I see is people making assumptions about people, particularly people in the United States, based on the actions of governments in the Middle East. And so I think like the more we can be in real relationship with each other and get to know one another, just like Marcus and Muhi are talking about, and everything that entails, right? Listening and being curious and not making assumptions and kind of getting closer. I think the less, the harder it is to like make assumptions and all that kind of stuff. And I think the work that we are doing is kind of an antidote to a lot of where I see conversations happening, which is online and in social media. And I love that stuff too, and I'm involved in it. But I think what we need is like more human to human, real person connection. And that's why we're like so excited to be doing this work in partnership with you all and Philanthropy Together. I'm so excited about the circle that Muhi's starting, because I think the more we can like actually connect real people to other real people to learn from each other, the less of a barrier that our assumptions become.
Yeah, I do definitely think one of the barriers has been opportunity. And so creating more opportunities for people to have that interaction, that one-on-one, that conversation, that giving circle we're having, I think it will I think it will bode well for the future. And I just also want to uplift kind of what you just touched on as well, Liz, that what you have here representing is Muslim, Jewish, African American, and kind of all of that, how in the space that we kind of fit in right now is going on in society. Nothing to do. I can't really do anything with it in this time that we have here, but just wanted to make sure we lift that up as well. So there are
Hello,
some
here
questions.
I am. Yes, I'm here.
So the first question. So I'm curious about whether rituals play a role in the way your community gives. Like, are there blessings that you say or verses that you teach, anything that grounds the faith more into the act? And so I'm gonna ask that anybody can answer. I'm gonna ask you to keep your answers brief, as we got a couple of questions we need to get through, and we are coming to the end of time. So.
Yeah, I'll jump in there and I'll keep this brief. And I'm actually going to read a particular scripture, Molly, to help me answer your question. But Luke 6:38, I'm going to read the beginning of it and the end of it. And it says, "Give and you will receive, your gift will return to you in full. The amount that you will give will determine the amount that you get back." I think a lot of people, when they see religious giving, they just think about it from a monetary standpoint. But I definitely believe that me giving my time, my talent, my gift that I was blessed to have, whatever I give, not just monetarily, but whatever I give, I believe that God is going to give that back to me, whether it's with different opportunities, like to be able to sit and talk to you guys, or just, be able to sit on different boards and just eat. So those are the different things that I believe that verse means for me. But yes, we do have many different scriptures and verses in the Bible that talks about, giving and how God will return those gifts back to you in blessings, whether it's monetarily or whether it's, just with different opportunities, jobs, whatever, houses, whatever the case may be. He doesn't speak of the material things, but we've kind of put, material view on a lot of it, unfortunately.
Good deal. Anyone else?
Sure, I'll jump in. There are over 80 verses in the Quran that mention zakat and hundreds of verses that mention sadaqah in the Quran. And then even in the prophetic teachings, there are similarly hundreds of stories focused around zakat and sadaqah. But in particular, like blessings that you would say when you are giving your zakat, it says, do not forget the reward and say, oh God, make it a gain and do not make it a loss. And that's just a general statement that we're encouraged to say when we give our zakat. And I'll mention that in Islam, we are encouraged to have good intentions, and with every intention is a reward. So even if you have the intention of giving, you will get the reward even if you don't fulfill that intent. And then if you actually fulfill the intent, you will get multiplied rewards for doing so. So we just finished the month of Ramadan. A lot of people give their charitable giving in Ramadan because of the increased blessings around it. And our faith tradition teaches us that when you are giving, the right hand should not know how much the left hand gives, or vice versa. So you can do it in private, and that is your act of worship. But also, if you do it to inspire others, and that is your intention, then that is also acceptable as well. So how we practice philanthropy can be seen in a variety of ways from a faith-based perspective as well.
Got it. Liz, the question that popped up, I think Amy Neil Bauer, I know I messed up the last name, I apologize for it. The question she asked is really the second question, is how to deal with power dynamic in that philanthropy naturally presents. Let me back up. So it's the whole question, right? How do you embed religious teachings, values of humility Giver could be receiver. We're all in this together into your giving practices. And how do you deal with this natural power dynamic in philanthropy?
Yeah, this question connects to the previous question for me, because there actually is not, as far as I know, a blessing for the giving of tzedakah, of giving of charity in Judaism. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One that I like is because it has to be relational, and there aren't usually blessings for things that involve two people. And I think that maybe connects here a little bit. I think this is a really important question, and both from a philanthropy standpoint and a faith standpoint. And we have a traditional kind of ladder of giving in Judaism created by Maimonides, where anonymity is very high at the top. But what I would say is one of the things I've actually learned from some of the work that Marcus is doing, and more broadly that the Community Investment Network is doing, is the importance of testimony in giving. And the challenge is that anonymity and humility are often the most appropriate thing to do in terms of the giving, but they don't necessarily inspire others to give, which we're also trying to do. And I think our 2021 challenge is how we can all give in a way that doesn't like make a hero out of the giver, because I don't think any of us want to create that, but it does tell the story in a way that inspires other people so they feel that they can be givers. And that's a challenge that we're all dealing with. And I don't know that there's a simple answer for, but I'll say that in Judaism, we have a tradition. You're supposed to keep two pieces of paper, one in each pocket. One says the entire world was created for me, and the other one says I am but ashes and dust. And so it's just this constant thing of like, I can make change, but I also have to be very humble.
Yeah. Wow. So we are, I think we got about 5 minutes left. And so I see one more question. That question really speaks to me. So what I want to do is this. Let's go ahead and do the final parting thoughts and action. And then at the end, I'll wrap up, and I'll include that answer in my wrap up. How about that? Parting action. So what do you want people to take away from this? What do you want people to do? It's not just come to the session and sit and listen to some good information. What do you want them to do?
I would say I would just want everybody to be intentional about getting your faith-based organizations that you may work for, that you may serve in, to get them more connected to the community through giving circles, and to make sure that they continue to make a positive impact on the community that you guys live in, because I think that's important. So yes, I always want you guys to be intentional about doing those things, and just putting action out there. Just make it happen. Make it happen, because we definitely need it.
Good deal.
Two things. First of all, if you're a member or if you belong to a faith-based community, start a giving circle. Just start at home. Just do it. And second thing is, if you care about interfaith giving and you want to join Interfaith and Giving Circle, call Muhi, because he's building an incredible thing.
Yes. I think each of you are here because you are passionate about your local community. You are passionate about your faith identity. You want to see a world in which you are happy for you and your kids and friends and loved ones to live in. So my call to action is to build that world, and to be together in community, and to reach out to others that are on this call, that you know in your network, that you know of other faiths, and tell them that you love them and that you want to be in a world together in which everything, there are nobody that is hungry, that there is nobody that doesn't have a home, and you want to work together on solving those critical needs in your local community. And I think if we can do that together, then we can build that world. And yes, that call to action, definitely reach out about the Interfaith Giving Circle. We would love to have you be part of that and build this movement together. And I'm so honored again to be part of this discussion. You can follow the work of American Muslim Community Foundation online, and I'll be sure to drop our information in the chat.
Yeah. So, my challenge in my wrap up, there was a question I was asked, what role do you think the churches will play in determining the future of collective giving? And they gave the example of in Dallas, there are churches that the community feels like they're intentionally absent from social justice and anything political. So how can you strengthen the connections with them to join in the fight for justice and shifting power? So the church itself, I think, is in a transformative state right now. As with all that's happening in the United States, just trying to figure out what does it play in the landscape. This is my opinion. I believe in the importance of giving circle, because giving circles are built off of community philanthropy, meaning that people who are impacted by issues and what have you, giving what they have in order to create that change. And I believe that giving circles are always on the cutting edge. When you think about movements and how movements start and what happens, you can look back and see this collective giving and giving circle model just throughout history. And so what I believe is that it goes back to something I talked about earlier, is that churches have to begin not to see this as a competition, but be able to use this as a tool in order to grow enrichment for their members, and grow in their services and things they offer to the community. And so I think that with COVID, what we see happening in COVID, you're going to see churches come to a turn in the road, for lack of better terms. Decisions are going to have to be made. I think the giving circles will continue. This model of collective giving will continue to be a viable way to engage and connect with people. And I believe that eventually churches will make that shift. It's just taking time, right? So in essence, if you can't tell, I believe in giving circles. I've been a part of this since 2003. And when I first heard and understand and learned about the concept, it bit me. It's like Spider-Man. I haven't changed, hadn't looked back since then. And so my action is to look at your circles and the networks and the people that you're a part of. What is it that you all are talking about? What is it that you all are passionate about? And then begin to think, well, how can I use my financial resources, however much or however little, to impact this situation? How can I use my social capital? How can I use my intellectual capital? And then how can I use my voice? I think when we use those three things, right, or those four things, that our giving can be amplified, our giving can be impactful, and our giving will make a difference. So I want to thank everybody. I want to thank this panel again. It was great to be a part of sitting and being a part of another session with you all. And so again, we want to thank Give Together, and so for the whole conference and putting this thing together. If I understand it correctly, we're kind of at the end of the agenda, and so we're moving into the larger celebration. So happy birthday to Marcus, early birthday to Marcus, Liz, Muhi. Again, we keep the community of beloved in our thoughts. Islamic community or the Jewish community, know that I love you, and we look forward to the next time that we can talk again.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, our session is over. Take care. Bye-bye.